History 102, Lecture 7, Rise of Totalitarianism. This part is Italy. In this video we'll discuss another totalitarian regime in Europe in the early 20th century, in Italy. The man we'll talk about is Benito Mussolini. Okay. Benito Mussolini was an Italian journalist in the early 20th century. Interestingly enough, early in his life and career, he liked Karl Marx. He considered himself a socialist. He liked Karl Marx, thought Karl Marx was great. When you study Benito Mussolini's political journey and evolution, World War I for Mussolini was a catalyst, like a lot of Europeans during that era. World War I is kind of the catalyst for Mussolini. Italy didn't do well in World War I. They were on the Central Power side. Germany, Austria-Hungary side started the war out. They tried to participate. They did disastrously. So they secretly switched sides, and then openly switched sides when they started attacking German units, but to the Allied side, and continued to do poorly. Italy's economy during World War I imploded. The other thing you need to know about Italy is, before the 1860s, Italy that you and I know and love did not exist. Italy was a patchwork of different cities and countries and all that. In the 1860s, Italy became the Italy we know and love today. So that was the 1860s. So in World War I, only 5-6 decades later, Italy was still experiencing political and economic chaos from that unification in the 1860s. And then they were doing disastrously in World War I. This chaos, economic, political, and doing bad in war, evolved Benito Mussolini to leave socialism. From his point of view, socialism, Karl Marx's ideology, was not successfully, helping Italy. He came to see it was dividing up Germany. Italy. He was dividing up Italy, and what Italy needed was a united leader. Okay, and going back to this idea of what is fascism, that's another important aspect of fascism, is the idea of the leader. Stalin in Russia, and now so Mussolini. When you study fascist ideology, it's this idea of a leader. One man who will bring together everyone. And Mussolini came to see that Italy needed that leader, that strong man, that leader who could idealize the virtues of society, or idealize the virtues of the nation. So Mussolini leaves kind of his socialist party he was part of, and develops his own political party. And so Mussolini is considered the father of political fascism. Why? Because it's argued that he's kind of the first political leader or political party to really bring together fascist philosophy or writings and put it into practical form. Okay. So he's kind of considered the father of political fascism. You take these 19th century writers that critique Marxism, that celebrated this idea of the nation and the leader, and then he develops his political party around these fascist ideas. Interestingly enough, Benito Mussolini defined fascism as corporatism. corpatism. Corporatism. So that's an interesting definition. What is corporatism? Business and government work very closely together very closely together, where they're almost one and the same. And so, and like I said in the previous video, that's the thing. In a fascist economy and society, you can have private business and private property. You just have to serve the interests of the state. And so we're in a communist society. Theoretically, there's no private company. The government takes over, and the government governs the business, kind of a thing. And so Mussolini, interestingly enough, described his definition of fascism. He described as corporatism. So you can think about that as well. In 1922, the Roman government, the Italian government is threatening to fall apart. Devastation from World War I, economic chaos in the after effects of World War I. The government is weak at the time. It's ineffectual. It's trying to keep together all these different parts of Italy and not doing a very good job of it. In 1922, it's called the March on Rome. What did Mussolini do? Mussolini got his political party together. Tens of thousands of his political party members. They wore a uniform. They're called black shirts because they wore a uniform. Like if you're a member of the party militia or party power apparatus, you wore a black shirt, and so they're called the black shirts. And they marched on Rome. He got his political party together, tens of thousands of members of his political party, and they marched on Rome. And what did the Italian government do when Benito Mussolini is leading his party? He's the head of the party. He's leading them to Rome. What did the Italian government do? They made Benito Mussolini prime minister. They said, okay, you can lead the government. So Mussolini, on his march on Rome, he takes power in 1922. It's like a bloodless coup almost. They show up, and the government is paralyzed. They don't want shooting to start. They don't, and they're not. They know they're not doing anything. They know they're inept. So as long as Mussolini promises not to have them all executed, the government just hands power over to the government leaders. I'm just say, okay, you're prime minister now, here. And so that's how Benito Mussolini comes to power. It's called the March on Rome. Just your political party just walk in, and the government's like, okay, here you go. You will restore our nation. Mussolini will be head of the Italian government from 1922 to 1944. So that's 1943, 44. So good 20 years in power, and he kind of again develops his personality cult. And so again, Mussolini's an example of that. This idea of the leader in a fascist government or politics or philosophy, the nation organizes around the leader who epitomizes the ideals of that nation, who expresses the will of that nation. And so Mussolini takes power in Italy.